Hey, what's up everybody? This is James and I'm back with another video. In this video I want to talk to you about another camera that I got, and that is the GH5. Now, I know what you're thinking. Man, why are you doing a video on a GH5? Hasn't there already been a ton of videos on a GH5? Yeah, there has. So I'm not going to do a review because there's a crap ton of people that are probably a little bit more better qualified than me to do reviews on GH5, because I'm actually just learning the GH5. Although I do have a lot of experience with the Panasonic G7, and I know that very well, but it's a different beast when you switch to a GH5. So you have to pretty much learn how to use a camera all over again. Pretty much. Now for the Sony, I know a pretty good amount about Sony, but I do like Panasonic cameras, and I think they're great. But in this video, I want to talk to you about some of the changes with the new update that they had, and the reason why I went ahead and got one. The changes in it is the fact that the autofocus works almost as good as Sony now, from what I'm hearing and from the tests that I've been making. And of course I'm going to do more tests. It's been raining here for the last week or so, and I haven't had a chance to really take it out and do some extensive tests. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually go ahead and do some testing and have a comparison between this from the GH5 to the Sony after the firmware update of 2.6. But anyways, let's go ahead and go to the focusing test so I can show you how good the focusing on this camera is now ever since we had a firmware update. And we're going to compare it against Sony's focusing system. And from my initial test of the little bit of what I can do, because you know where it's raining outside and I want to go outside and do it, from what I could tell on it, the tests are pretty good, even for a Panasonic. You know, I don't know if it's as good as the Sony yet, but we're going to find out. And as soon as I get a good day out there, I'm going to go out there and start doing the tests. Okay, well, let's go ahead and fast forward a few days to where I'm able to do this test, and I'll go ahead and show you the results of that. All right, here we go. In this test, we're going to have the GH5 and the Sony a7iii. For the Panasonic, we're going to be using the 25mm. For the Sony, we're going to be using the Tamron 28 to 75mm. With the Tamron, I'll have it set at the 50mm mark, because the 25mm lens for the Panasonic is the equivalent of a 50mm 4-frame. For the settings, they will have the same settings for each test, as far as the aperture, the shutter speed, and the ISO. They will all be the same. Now the purpose of this is not having the exact same kind of lenses or anything like that. The purpose of this is basically see how much of an improvement that the GH5 has now on their autofocusing since the firmware update. Okay, for my first test here, I did it with a aperture of 4.0 and shutter speed of 400, and of course my ISO is at 100. And I did that spot focus. I believe I did the spot focus. I can't really remember if I did or not, but I think I did, and it was getting pretty good focus at 4.0, if I remember correctly. I might have had it on face tracking on this one, but I know on this one I definitely did spot focus on this one, and I had it at aperture of 2.8 and shutter speed of 500, and the ISO is at 100. Yes, I know it was overexposed. I perfectly kind of messed up exposure, and I also didn't follow the 180 rule as well on theirs, because I wanted to see how the focusing do whenever you don't exactly follow all the rules. And as you can see right here, that spot focus, it doesn't work. I mean, it will work from time to time, but it's not very reliable. Out of all the other AF modes here, the spot one is the worst one because it never caught on, or it won't focus or anything like that. Now, if I put the lens up to 4.0, it did focus, but it still had trouble focusing from time to time. And I also switched locations and stuff like that to see if that might have been the issue. And it wasn't the issue. It's just that one, that mode totally sucks. I would not even use that one. This right here is the custom mode. And this one worked really good. And of course you can pick what area of the screen that you wanted to focus on. I pretty much just left it right in the middle, and just to see how it did with it just being in the middle. So like I said, that one did pretty good, so it gets a check mark. Up next you got the 225 AF mode. I have to say this mode is probably my favorite one other than the face tracking mode, because I mean it seemed to do a really good job. Of course the custom was good too, but this one gets a check mark as well. Up next we got the regular tracking mode here. I didn't have anybody behind the camera to press on the screen to track me to see if it will track me okay. But without even doing anything, the autofocus worked great. I mean, I didn't really have to touch anything or anything like that. And as you can see, it was focusing on me pretty good. So, unfortunately, at that time, I lost the one where I did the face tracking. But later on that day, I went back outside and I went ahead and did the face tracking, and it did pretty good. As you could tell, I'm not overexposed like I was earlier, and the face tracking worked really good. Even when, although that first time it did have a little bit of a hiccup, but every time I jumped in there, it pretty much worked. And as I went back and then came towards the camera, it still worked really good. So the face tracking is another mode that I really like as well. Okay, I wanted to do some night ones, although I will say that I was a little bit out of order on this, but sorry about that. But I went ahead and decided to do some night ones. I didn't do a custom mode. I just went ahead and did the 225 area mode. And of course you will get the same results with the custom mode. So I didn't end up doing the custom mode. I also didn't do the spot one because, well, frankly, that one sucked and it definitely wasn't going to work anyway. So I didn't waste my time doing it. And even if I did do it, I probably would have just left it off of here and just told you that it didn't work. But as you can see here, and I'm going back and forward, and I'm going kind of fast to simulate as if you was doing a hip-hop video or something, and if it was going to actually focus on here. As you can see, it did struggle a little bit, going in and out fast. And this is at nighttime, and I'm glad I have those lights in the background there. And that way it'll make it a little bit more difficult. As you can see, the Sony was doing pretty good in the low light. And also the lighting, yes, it was pretty terrible here. I did not have a light on my camera, and I purposely did that because I wanted to see how it did in a horrible low light situation. It did okay, and it did catch on a few times, but Sony clearly did a better job at catching focus than what the Panasonic did. And if you haven't been paying attention, I've been switching through the modes here. Currently it's on tracking. The next one is going to be face detection. Okay, for giggles, I went ahead and took out a light that I had in my pocket and shined it on me just to see if it would pick up my face if you had perfect lighting on your face as you go up and back. I have to say, it did a pretty good job. Up next, I went ahead and closed the garage door, and I wanted to do a different low light test but have a light on top of the camera. And I went ahead and kept it on the same mode, which is face tracking. I did try it with other modes as well, but this video is already long enough, and it was pretty much the same results on all of them. In this mode, I gave Panasonic a little bit of an advantage. I went ahead and took it down to a aperture of 1.7 to give it a little bit better low light. Although I was a little bit overexposed on there, but I still was able to get really good autofocus out of the GH5. Now, of course, like I said, a lot of these were done in bad lighting situations or bad situations, and then some of them were done in good situations with good settings. Now, I know this video is already pretty darn long, and some of you probably already tuned out on it, but I also wanted to show a couple more examples. Here are a couple of videos I've done with the Panasonic GH5. Now, please don't judge. This is raw and unedited, but I just wanted you to pay attention to the focusing. Now, in this video, you will notice that I got a light behind the artist here, and also it's kind of a bad situation to get good autofocus. But as you will see here, it does a pretty good job. By the way, the artist's name is Lord AR. As I said, I got a light behind him, and I also got a light in front of him as well, so it would light up his face, so that the camera can also focus on his face, and it won't be a silhouette shot. I also have some red lighting in there to give it some color. And as you can see, the focusing did pretty good. Now, this next artist right here, his name is Prince Dang, and I did a video with him, and the lighting was a little bit more better than it was with Lord AR. And as you will see, it did a pretty good job on the focusing as well. Now, I was doing this handheld. I could have put it on a gimbal, but I already had the gimbal set up for my Sony, and I was only using this camera for one scene to test out the autofocus. The stabilizer was on too, so that's probably why we got a lot of jerk in this, and I didn't mean to for it to do that. I should have probably turned it off because I knew I was going to be moving the camera a lot. So I think the stabilizer was giving us some issues. And the funny thing is, this little part right there, actually, I guess that kind of worked because it made a cool effect in the video. But again, like I said, the purpose of this is to test out the autofocus, and as you can see, I'm moving a lot in here, and it's pretty much keeping it up. It may not be perfect, but it was keeping up with the focusing. So even though the focusing did pretty good while I was trying to record a rap music video, I still find myself wanting to go to my Sony because I feel like the Sony is a little bit more reliable on the focusing. Don't get me wrong, the GH5 did a fantastic job, but I still prefer my Sony over the GH5 when I'm doing music videos. But if I was trying to choose on which camera I should buy for my music videos, I probably would go for the Panasonic GH5 due to the fact of all the video features that it has. And the fact that the autofocus works pretty good, almost as good as the Sony. But Sony's autofocus is still a little bit more better than the GH5's. And another feature that Sony has better than the GH5 is the fact that it does excellent in low light and takes fantastic pictures. So whichever reasons as to why you would pick one of these cameras, you can't really go wrong with either one of them because both of them are fantastic cameras. It just depends on what is more important to you, low light and pictures or video features. Also keep in mind, I have the Panasonic 25mm lens. I've heard there's better Panasonic lens out there for autofocus. This one is not the best with autofocus, so that might be a factor as well. Keep that in mind. Okay, I hope you enjoyed those tests. Hopefully you can be able to make up your mind whether you want a GH5 or Sony, which one you think is better. My advice to Sony is you need to come out with a new firmware update and fix some of the issues that you're having. Like for instance, using a field monitor with a Sony a7iii, you need to fix that, because that's like one of the big things that I hate about the Sony a7iii is the fact that you can't use autofocus on a field monitor. So. That was fixed. I'll say that would definitely make this a good contender, so but honestly, this right here, I don't know if now that they have the autofocus fixed in this, I honestly would, if I had to choose between the GH5 and the Sony, I probably would go with the GH5 now, although I love the fact that the a7iii has awesome and low light. So, but I mean, I guess you have to get a light. Just get a light, to fix the low light issue. So, that's my only advice on that. But if I had to choose between the both of these, I don't know. I love my Sony. I'm a fan of Sony. I'm a fan of Sony colors, but I gotta hold my pride back and say you're probably better off getting the GH5 now. Now that they fixed the autofocusing, that was the only issue that most people had with the GH5 was the autofocus, and now it seems like that with the firmware update, it fixed the problem. We're getting so much better autofocus with this, and anyways, I'm sad, but that's all I have for this video. Until next time, peace out, and live long and prosper.